Hello, and welcome to another Forena screencast. My name is David Metzler, and I'm the module author. Today, I'm going to cover briefly how to add CSS styles to Forena reports. Today, we'll be using a report that I've already created, and I created it from the sample database that's delivered with Forena, and it basically shows a table of states and their names and the total number of users in each state, and a classification of good, average, or poor that is derived based on the values of the totals in the total column. And that's actually derived by the SQL, so that the classification comes from the business rules defined in your SQL queries. What we're going to do today is we're going to use this classification to call out styles, to call out visually the good classified totals using CSS. First thing we need to do is do a little editing of the Forena Report FRX file. If you recall from prior screencasts, Forena Report stores all reports that it creates in the files on the file system so that they can be edited using external tools like Eclipse or Oxygen or some other XHTML editor. The directory where those are stored was set when we configured Forena to be Site's default files reports. So I'm going to go out to that directory and using Eclipse and open that file directly so that I can edit it. And as you might remember, these are just XHTML files with some custom tags and attributes that tell Forena how to render the report. So we're going to go ahead and first I'm going to do a little reformatting. Eclipse has a nice reformatting option for XHTML, so it puts it indented so it's a little easier to read. Now what I'm going to do is that I wanted to change visually the classification based on the classification of the totals. So I'm going to go ahead and add a class equal tag here, and this class equals, I'm actually going to use the same column as a class for styling the report. So here we go, classification matches exactly classification, and I'm just using Forena's token replacement to choose which column is going to be used for that report. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do that. I'll reload my report, and using a tool like Chrome's inspect element, I can take a look at that and see in fact that yes, Forena did assign class equal good to those first rows of data. So now all that's left is to style that using CSS. So Forena automatically loads any CSS files in the report directory that have the same name as the report. So in this case, we're talking about the style demo report, and so we can go and create a file, a CSS file of the same base file name in the same directory, and it'll automatically get included. So I'm going to go ahead and make a new CSS file. In our case, our report name was style demo, so I'm going to call this styledemo.css. In my reports directory. And that just created this style demo CSS file, and now all I have to do is see if I can select those styles and change some background colors. So in this case, good was the class that I was seeing in the element inspector, so I'm going to use a CSS class selector of good, and I'm going to say background color green. So going back to my report, simple reload shows indeed that CSS file got included, and now we have only those rows that are classified as good having the good style attached to it. The second layer of CSS that Forena provides is a report form. And this can be found if you're editing the report in the WYSIWYG editor on the Format tab. You can specify a report form. This comes from the old report writing terminology. The report form was basically the form on which you printed the report. So this is, as it says, the page style of your report. So you're going to specify the base file name of any CSS or JS file. So in this case, we're going to assume that all of our state reports are going to share the same look and feel, and so I'm going to specify the state reports form. Now, I haven't created that yet, but as soon as I do, that CSS file is going to automatically get included. So now, going back to my Eclipse, I am going to create a new CSS file in my reports directory called state reports.css, and then I can specify CSS styles that are going to be used across all the different state reports. In this particular case, we're going to override the table headers and give them a background color that uses that same green. So I'm just going to do background color green, just like I did before, and we'll go back and we'll hit reload, and sure enough, nothing happened. Well, that was kind of by design. Most CSS people will tell you that CSS applies the most specific styles, but the most specific style wins. So in this case, what's going on is if we do an inspect element, we'll see that the CSS style color green was applied, but then it was later overridden by a more specific CSS rule, in this case table trth, that is applied actually by the theme CSS. So we need to be careful to make our CSS selectors more specific than the CSS selectors in the theme. Well, the easiest way to do that in Forena is to use the Forena Report class, which is applied to the div that surrounds every Forena report that's rendered. So I'll go back to my CSS file, and I'll change the selector to be more specific. So in this case, it's Forena Report Table trth, and sure enough, then if I refresh my page, that style gets applied. Well, that's great. Remember now that we can turn around and apply those to any of the state reports. So if I have another existing report, like my simple table of states, that's the example report delivered with Forena, and I want to make sure that style applies, I simply go into the Format tab and change the form to state reports, and I'll hit save, and sure enough, that th override style is applied to that report as well. Well, you can also specify the default form that gets used by Forena reports is something that's in the configuration of Forena. So when you go to configure Forena reports, you'll see this field called default report form. And so if we wanted all reports site-wide to be using that state report CSS override, we could specify it here as well. I'm not going to do that for my reports, so it's good enough that I've shown you that you can create these style libraries that then get applied to more than one of your reports to establish a kind of a common look and feel across all the reports that you create using Forena. Another important thing to note when styling Forena reports is that Forena goes ahead and has one little helper class that it assigns every time it reiterates rows in the database. It's going to go ahead and apply a class to that report of either odd or even to achieve this variegated this variegated pattern that we see in most of the Forena reports as they come out of the box. So here we're looking at the table of states, but if we go back to our style demo report, we can see that on every row there's a class automatically added odd, even, as it iterates all the rows in the database. Now, that's because that happens anytime an FRX for each element is encountered. So if we look at the original report, we can see here that on the TR tag there's an FRH for each equals star, which is basically telling Forena to iterate through all rows and repeat this TR tag, the pattern, for every row encountered in the database. Well, that happens to be on the TR tag, but as you're customizing your own reports, you can put that for each on any tag that you want. So you might have it on a TR tag, or a T-body tag, or a div tag, or a P tag, or a ULL or an LI tag when you're doing lists of things for blocks and stuff like that. So understand that these styles are going to get added to every particular tag that's generated by one of these for each elements. Well, that's it. I hope you found that helpful. It should get you started in terms of applying styles to your reports. Thanks for your time, and I hope you have great success.